I consider myself an elected official. There are politicians too. There's a big difference. Politicians are here to rule. Elected officials are here to serve. What are you coming in this for? For profit for yourself, for money, or for someone like me who I'm worried about my kid's future?
Welcome everybody to the Warrior Podcast. Today I have a very, very special guest. He is DuPage County Sherriff running for governor of Illinois. And with that said, Mr. James Mendrick, welcome to the Warrior Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today.
My pleasure, sir, and my honor. Like I like to do in every podcast, I like to talk about your beginnings, childhood, parents, siblings, etc. Tell me where you came from.
I was born into a Catholic family, very religious. Sunday was church day every week. My dad was a police officer. He was a police officer at Oak Park. He eventually became the chief and was the chief for about 20 years. And my mom was a working mother. I was into wrestling, martial arts. That was my big thing as a kid. I wrestled a lot of matches, a lot of karate tournaments. That was my thing. And I never planned on being the police. So just a precursor, I've been with the DuPage County Sheriff's Office now for 29 years. I started in 1996 making $24,000 a year. And the way I got there was really unique because I'm a sculptor. So I was a student teacher in sculpting, photography, literature. I wanted to write books, do photography, and sculpt and work in advertising. And as soon as I graduated, CGI, computer graphics, took over that whole market. And I'm not a computer programmer. That's just not my thing. It's not what I studied. So my dad says, he's a cop, he's a police chief. He's like, why don't you apply to one of these police joints while you're working on getting an art job? So he would actually pick me up from a midnight job that I have and bring me home at 7 a.m., but stop at a local park and say, go run that track there 3 times. I'm like, why? He's like, it's 1.5 miles. That's what you have to do to pass the police academy. So after my midnight shift for the better part of a year, I got dropped off after a 10-hour shift of working in a factory, throwing cases on a line and filling, semi-trucks with, boxes. I would do that 1.5 miles every day after work. And that was my dad taking me there. So I applied to DuPage County. And 29 years later, here I am. I got elected. I did every job at DuPage County. I started as a patrolman, working just beats. And, my background is a little different than people think. Because a lot of people say, what makes you qualified to run for governor? Look at these qualified people. Look at these people who have all these. And then I look at their qualifications and I'm like, it is interesting. They might have some business acuity. But what I did was I did 4.5 years of criminal investigations as a patrolman. Then I was one of the I think I was the top fastest sergeant in DuPage County. At 4.5 years, I was promoted to sergeant.
Oh, you mean in terms of climbing the ladder, right?
Yeah. Then they made me a detective sergeant in charge of our financial investigation. So I've done forensics audits on drug cartel members, billionaires who are embezzling, and retail theft, from small to big, if it was money. And I never realized how much I didn't like math until you put a dollar sign in front of it. Then math is kind of fun because we had a motto in detectives, follow the money. So doing all of the forensics investigations on financial crimes really brought me into the money world. So I look at things a little bit differently than the others. I look at what are you doing wrong with your money? I look at it from an audit perspective. So after that, I got to be a lieutenant. I ran the gang unit. My favorite was a canine unit. And when I say run things, you have to understand that all of these extra duties are what we call collaterals. It's you do your main duty plus. It's not that I just did canines for 15 years. I did canines on the side after mission first, the first primary duty I have. So I was a watch commander while I did all of these different ancillary units, everything from gang to canine to drug unit, did all of those kind of investigations. And then I got promoted to major for accreditation and analyzation of the entire department. and then went right into chief as budget. So I did the budget at the DuPage County Sheriff's Office for about 12 years. Back then it was about 60 million with arbitrated awards and contracts. Because you got to understand, a part of my qualifications are we're like a little city. I have right now an $80 million budget. I have 504 headcount. I have 300 contractors, and I'm the chief negotiator and contract writer for any kind of issues that come up. I am a very good contract person. And having that experience and knowing how to maneuver that into a government, and me being a cop, but having to stay nonpartisan and work with both Democrats and Republicans, because I'm mostly Democrat board, but I get everything that I want in my budget because we have what we call a zero balance budget. If I have paper clips that I bought, somewhere on that zero balance budget, it's going to be $2.50 for a box of paper clips. I keep within my budget. Mind you, in 12 years of running this major budget, which is the largest component of DuPage County's budget, we've never gone over. We've never been over budget in 1 year. I look at like what J.B. Pritzker's doing. The state budget was passed July 1, right? So after July 1, like just in the last few weeks, he's added illegal alien education. That will cost almost $2 billion. Abortion pills in all of college mandatory. Mandatory medical screening. So he's added probably about $3 billion of basically non-funded mandates after the budget's set. If you really wanted to do that right, those 3 items should have gone in front of the public, in front of the board, and been included in your budget. But you wait till after July 1st, pass your budget, then add these items that are going to cost so much money. If I did that in DuPage County, I'd be crucified. They would come with, torches and pitchforks. I could not even fathom pulling a stunt like that in legitimate DuPage County. So what they're doing over there is just, it's criminal. But anyway, back to how this works for me. I run a little city called a courthouse. Anything from a murder trial to a traffic ticket, we handle all the security for that. I handle the largest police department in DuPage County, and we're the second biggest county in the state. And hey, mind you, I'm going to knock on wood when I say it, but I've been elected now 7 years, and I was elected by my own people. My own people got me elected. But in 7 years, we have not had one use of force complaint against one patrol deputy by one citizen. You show me anybody else that could say it. But I will say, you know what? We are the leaders in crisis intervention and de-escalation. We have VR helmets that you put them on and you're schizophrenic, you can hear the voice. It's so interesting, empathizing to put a helmet on and be autistic, and all of a sudden everything's too bright, too loud. Maybe you shouldn't use your flashlight or the bright flashy lights when you're dealing with those people. And I always tell them, because I was an instructor who incepted our crisis intervention training. I have a son who's autistic, he's on the spectrum, and I always wanted the cops to know what they would need to deal with my own son, right? So if you jack up somebody on the spectrum, you're calling for your own problems, because endorphins, adrenalines, fight or flight, they're going to be super strong, and they don't want to hurt you. That is not their intent. They want to get away from, they're afraid. And when you make someone fearful, they can act aggressively. And then all of a sudden you have a big problem when you could have avoided it all through de-escalation. So even me, my job, I have been, since 1996, I've been arresting people. I always thought we could arrest our way out of everything. That was, the solution, because if you're a bad guy, you got arrested. But in all the years and all the arrests, I've only gone to court twice. And that's because I write really good reports. You answer the questions in reports. And I have never pointed my gun at a human being.
Wow.
I have never tased anybody. I've never pepper sprayed anybody. I've never punched or kicked anybody. I am a good wrestler. I got to give you that. So you know what? I actually have always violated one of our rules throughout my whole patrol career, but it gave me those numbers, those statistics. We have what we call a reactionary gap. They call that in police. That's where you stay about 15 feet as the threshold, where they say, even if you shoot them, they could still get you with a knife. And, from that distance, they could be lunging forward before you can stop the threat. So my reactionary gap was always about 3 feet. I'm right up on you. And that twice I've had people try to draw on me in my career. And I was able to just maintain it by hand control, being very close. So instead of a reactionary grab, somebody who's wrestling and judo and jujitsu and those type of trainings, that they're hands-on wrestling type of, tactics, that always worked for me. And that actually was the solution to keep me from having to use weapons. I don't think a lot of when there's police shootings, most of them, I would say darn near all of them, aren't acts of militia. They're acts of fear. When you're getting out of college, you've never been hit in the head before and feel that ringing, that tunnel vision, and realize that you have to combat your way out of it. It's so easy to turn to a weapons belt. And out of fear, instead of being defeated, you shoot. And that's what causes a lot of these problems. That's why it's very important to train in defensive tactics, in de-escalation, and by us really enhancing our training. Even the academy came out and put de-escalation in the academy. That's great. You're wasting my money. It's a half measure of what I already teach. I teach it countywide for everybody, but the academy is only half of that. So I got to pay to have you teach a half measure in the academy and then pay again because I'm putting you through the full. I'm not reducing my standards because the Safety Act came out and said it's got to be in the academy at this rate. Now I've got to do what they want, pay for it, and then pay for the real one when everybody gets out.
I want to pause on this because I'm a martial artist too. So, and the first time you really get hit and get your bell rung, like you said, your ears ring. And so I've seen a lot of crimes on video because we have so many crimes on video where the police have a right to shoot, right? But then I always thought to myself, in some of those circumstances, if these guys had a little bit of advanced training, like someone coming at you with a baseball bat or whatever, with I don't want to say a minimum amount of training, but with enough training, you can neutralize that threat without having to shoot somebody, right? And you were gifted. And by the way, you were telling me, I'm a sculptor and I'm an artist and I'm a wrestler and I'm a martial artist. And I'm like, that's a Renaissance man. You got a pretty wide repertoire, which is pretty cool. But anyway, I always thought that like if the police officers had a little bit more advanced physical training, leverage some judo moves, et cetera, like that, and they have been hit a few times, right, through training, that they would have less fear.
Without a doubt, you hit a great point. And it is, if you equip your guys the right way, train them the right way, you'll have success. We go far on everything. So we do a lot of defensive training. We actually have a jujitsu training.
Nice.
Because here's the beauty. Jujitsu specifically is great because as a wrestler, we're trained to never be on our back. If you're on your back 3 seconds, you lost a match. In jiu-jitsu, they teach you to fight off of your back. And that is a huge thing. That is a huge advantage. That gives people the necessary training that they need to not be afraid. If they get tackled, hey, there's still a way out. Because I will say, out of the uses of force I've had, most people are people who just try to bum rush you, try to either cold cock you or tackle you. Now, here's the scary thing, though. And this is part of the Safety Act, too. We talked about that tunnel vision, how it is to first be hit. Part of what came in with the Safety Act is the fact that if you get hit like that and end up having to discharge your weapon and shoot somebody, part of the Safety Act says you cannot review that video. You have to write an independent report.
Interesting.
And the reason they do that is so they can impeach what you did, because I'll be honest with you, being in fights all my life like that, I could never describe exactly how I retaliated from being punched in the head. It's reactionary. In fact, in wrestling and in judo, basically, as soon as you touch somebody, your eyes are gone. You don't need eyes. It's all feel. It's all touch. So now I'm supposed to write a report specifically about how I stop somebody from killing me or beating me up or disarming me. And it has to correlate with the video on the body cam. That's not really giving us a fair shot. That's really hurting the police. That's what caused a lot of retirements.
That's so interesting. I never thought about that, not being able to look at your own body cam. Because it's almost impossible to recreate what's happening when you're 100% on overdrive with your adrenaline, right?
My recommendation to any police officer is, talk to your command staff. I think your narrative to your report should be review body cam footage.
Tell me a little bit about the martial arts training, because I'm a martial artist. I took a version of MMA,
So
grounded in, traditional karate.
tactics start, and my dad did this to me at 4 years old, introducing me to chess, making me think too much.
Oh boy, that's a great game.
But, tactical prowess is what makes you win. And we do a lot of like I said, we have specifically jujitsu. We have tactics control. We have different types of tactics, if it's corrections or if it's patrol. Even in shooting, think about this methodology. Here's a new way we're training. So you have the thing that's on, it flips, and it's a guy with the gun, or it's a lady, or it's a guy with the gun, it's a guy with not a gun, and it just flips back and forth. So that's great. That's a great tool to teach people when to shoot and not shoot. But what we precursor that with now is an entire silhouette, not with the person, but with about 12 objects. So you'll have a yellow circle with the number 2, a blue square with the number 4, a brown star with the number 6, and so on. Different symbols, different colors, different numbers. The instructor will call out either a shape, a color, or a number, and you have to shoot that target. And that makes you now analyze. Okay, now yellow. Oh, okay, square. Okay. You have to differentiate. And if they call out something that's not on the chart, and you touch your weapon, you lose a point. So this is a way to make you critically think. It's very difficult. This is a very difficult task. But after you do this, now you have to do your mandatory training of shoot, don't shoot. And it's like, you know how easy this is after what you just put me through? Now just shoot if it's a lady or somebody without a gun. My God, that's easier than figuring out a square, a circle, or a number. So we make you perform at a level several layers beyond what you would have to perform at. So when you come back down to the normal, that task is now easy because we've tested you at a harder level.
That's interesting. I just went shooting yesterday. How can I mimic that myself in a range? I can't, right? Because I would need another party.
You would need a second person just to call it out. You could put any type of chart with those type of symbols on anything. You just need somebody to call out which ones to shoot, because that's a decision.
It really is. That's like mind training the mind, right? So
it was tough. It took me a while. I'm like, wow, okay, this is a little more advanced than I'm used. This is not shooting 50 rounds at a silhouette.
Nice. So we flew over it, but I wanted to know the martial arts training you had, early on and stuff. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I started in junior high with wrestling. I loved wrestling. Wrestling was so fun.
Did you volunteer to do that, or what? Did you get instructed by your old man?
No, this one I joined on my own. You know what? I was a victim of a lot of bullying. I got bullied a lot when I was a kid, and basically just wanted to be able to protect myself. I think about what can get a kid into trouble. I was carrying a pocket knife around when I was a kid. I'm thinking if I had to, I would stab somebody if they beat me up, because when you get bullied a lot, you start to think of what you'll do if somebody does it again. That's always the scenario. And I had that in my mind for a number of years because I went through a lot of bullying when I was a kid. That's probably why I accepted the whole cop thing, because I didn't want to be a cop. My dad talked me into it. I think the only reason I said yes was because I couldn't stand bullies. And I looked at the cop job like, okay, I can stop bullies at least that way. So that made me join martial arts at a young age, probably in 7th grade. Started with Ishinru. Then I did a little bit of Aikido, jiu-jitsu, and judo. And, I liked anything where you could grab somebody. That was, anything that kind of integrated martial arts with wrestling, so judo and jiu-jitsu were probably the best two, because judo, it really is, it's martial arts wrestling is really what it is. But they teach you how to hurt somebody with their clothes, which is kind of an interesting thing.
I want to pause you on judo, okay? When I was taking mixed martial arts, judo was a small part of it. Well, this was in my trading floor days. We had a man working on the trading floor. His name was Steve Cohn. He was the Olympic judo coach. Okay, so he was built like a 3-flat. And I naively said to him one day in the morning, I said, Steve, is judo, is it good for self-defense? And he looked at me like this. He goes, well, let's put it this way. If you came at me on the street, I'd slam your body down in the cement at 60 miles an hour. You tell me, is that a good martial art?
Yeah.
Good self-defense.
And that's it. Judo, that's the portion they have with wrestling. In wrestling, when you throw somebody, you have to go with them. Judo, you can just drop them.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu, so for me, I don't have a large upper body. my legs are like tree trunks. So I jog 6.5, 7 miles a day, every single day. Even today, where am I at now? I'm at, I'm slacking today. I'm just under 19,000.
Okay. The day's still young.
Yeah, the day I get my 20 plus every single day. Keeping in shape, I think, is very important. I fast also. I like to keep a clean body, a clean mind, exercise.
How do you do the fasting? 24, 3-day fast?
No, every single. So here's the deal. This is a personal thing for me, but about 18 years ago, I was almost 300 pounds.
Get out of here. What do you weigh now?
185. That's my high school wrestling weight too, coincidentally. I was a 185 class. It's easy. How fast as a cop? You're going to be in the car most of the time. And the only thing open at 2 a.m. are burrito joints and, fast food places. So that's what you eat. I can't tell you how many Mexican restaurants I frequented over the years until one day I'm going to work and I bend over to tie my boots and I can't breathe. And I'm like, why am I having a... Oh, because I'm bending over my gut. I'm fat, and I'm like, I then looked at like the first idea I got on the job and you could see it in my face. So I made a concerted decision 18 years ago to drop the weight, to do it the right way. So I fasted, I cut out most of my carbs, went into a high fruit, vegetable, protein, did that for it took 1.5 years. And boy, is it frustrating because when you're losing weight, you lose 20 pounds and then you hit a plateau. Mm-hmm. And then it feels like you're doing this for nothing because 2 months later, you haven't lost another pound. But don't ever forget that keep at it. It will come. Then you hit another plateau. And it took me a full 1.5 years to take all that weight off and get from 300 down to 185. And I've kept that weight off for about 16.5 years now. I pretty much don't eat, and I don't eat breakfast. I have black coffee. I don't eat lunch. I have a decent sized dinner. And I might have a small snack, but I jog right before I go to bed. So I'll do my 6 to 7 miles at about 9 o'clock and then take a shower and go to bed. And I turn off like a light switch. It turned out to be my cure for insomnia. Everyone told me, yeah, that's great that you're doing the jogging in the morning. I'm sure it gives you all energy for the day. And, I actually bought into it for a while until I realized, no, actually, it's sucking the life out of me. And as soon as
That's so interesting because
as soon as I'm done jogging, it doesn't keep me up. I go to bed like in a half a second after jogging and taking a shower.
Yeah, and then you jack up your metabolism.
And right? I'm not sleeping on food. So the one meal I did have, I burnt it off and then went to bed.
That's awesome. I used to do it the opposite way. And by the way, for the last, I'm 61, since I was like 27, same thing. No breakfast, no lunch, a nice sized meal and a snack, but I was doing my running in the morning.
Me too, for a lot of years.
But what wound up happening is I would get on the scale. I used to be a chunker as well. I used to get on the scale at night and go, oh shit, I'm 2 pounds up. So the next morning it's not 4 miles, it's 6 miles. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's sustainable as long as your body can do it. But I'm not waking up and doing 6 miles anymore.
It's much easier at night. And to be honest with you, after you eat, you're burning that energy anyway. It gives you the energy to do the jog.
That's true.
So, and then it burns it. It's not in your stomach overnight. Even though the one meal you had, you burnt it and it's not turning into sugar and fat. I've been doing that, the night jog. Because so remind you, I've been doing this for 18 years. It's only the last 2 years I've been doing the night jog. It took me a long time to figure out that it was actually exhausting me in the morning.
Wow. Are you doing it outside?
All treadmill.
All treadmill.
Yep.
Okay.
I fill up my DVR with my favorite shows.
Nice.
And because I'm watching the numbers. I have to hit certain mile markers at certain times. I'm that.
Yeah. The treadmill is good and bad. It's good because you're going at a constant speed. You don't have to worry about terrain and twisting your ankle. But they say, and I've never noticed this, but the repetition is almost identical and it can wear you down a little bit too.
Oh, yeah. Knees, ankles, feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
How old are you?
55.
55. That's awesome that you're cranking it out, though.
You know what, though? It's funny you say that about the treadmill because it does wear you out. You're doing the most repetitive behavior that you can possibly do over and over and over again. And I am already looking at, I found a place in Willowbrook. You can rent lane swimming. I'm like, that's my future, I think. I don't want to go down. I bought an elliptical and I was so frustrated. I'm like, oh my God, I would have to do like 3 hours on an elliptical when I get out of a 6 mile jog. I'm like, I don't have the patience for this. But I know that the highest calorie output is swimming. I just don't have a pool. But now I find out that they're starting to do these reserve lane pools. I'm like, that's perfect. That, go to Willowbrook, swim for an hour and get your calories that way without the joint damage.
What about stairs? Stairs to me are the only thing that it kicks my ass more than running.
Yeah, I can't. Even on the Fitbit that I've got 20,000 on every day, the stairs, I get the minimum. I get the 10 flights. Stairs are horrible for. Even on the treadmill, I don't do the incline for the same reason.
Why is it?
It's stressful on the knees.
Oh,
I had knee surgeries. I got a couple titanium pins in there. I don't want to tempt fate.
Well, you're talking to a guy who has double hip and double knee replacement.
Oh, there you go.
And part
you
of
know
it,
better than I do.
Part of it was because I was a fanatic like you. You still are. I can't be anymore, but I love that.
I've taken it easy though. I'm starting to learn. There's certain things I can't do anymore.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing the fitness to now. Why are you running for governor?
It's a multi-layered question. I'm glad you asked it directly like that because, a big part of it, there's a financial aspect, right? I look at my electricity bills, our water bills, our property taxes. It's becoming unaffordable for us. We're wondering how long we can sustain it. So everything is going up and up and up and up, and it's not slowing down. It's not stopping. It's getting a lot worse. And you always have that, feeling like, are we going to go junk bond status and, basically bankrupt in the state? Because that's where it's going towards. It was just like, think if Kamala Harris would have won instead of Trump. We'd be socialists right now. Our money would be gone. I think we're in the same position with J.B. Pritzker. If he got a third term, we're toast. I don't see the survivability of Illinois. So that was a financial aspect. The other part was I was looking at moving to Alabama. Just let's flee. Let's do what everybody else does. Let's get out of Illinois. And I have a 25-year-old son who said, I'm staying no matter what. I have my school out here, my friends out here. So it's like, okay, I don't want to move to Alabama and basically not see my son barely at all anymore. That would, tear my soul out. So I figured, okay, maybe I can change things. I've been fighting with J.B. Pritzker. It started with masks. He wanted everyone in masks, and the masks did not make scientific sense. Okay, I was on
You're preaching to the choir on that, brother. I got 40 studies on masks.
Well, I was on the weapons of mass destruction team. Come on. You have to have an N95 or cartridge or better. You have to be clean shaven. You have to pass your fit tests with your bitters and your smoke. And if this language, they don't even understand, and they're issuing masks, right? So they don't know. A guy with a big fuzzy beard could have a mask and he's fine, right? Yeah, send him into a contagion area. Smart. You just killed him. It was such poor science that I could not condone something that I didn't believe in. They couldn't tell me parts per million, saturation zones, how close in proximity you would have to be to absorb molecules. They didn't go into any of those avenues. Wear masks because it's good till 11:59. At 12, it's not. If you're standing, you can have it on. If you're sitting, What?
I'm with you.
Who says stupid stuff like that? So it started with that. That's where I knew Pritzker was BS. He's gaining something from this somewhere. And then now shut down the restaurants because I can't explain either there how many parts per million people. This same thing, wouldn't do that. Then it was put your cops on vaccination lists for mandatory government vaccination lists. Wouldn't do that. Then he started firing cops in Chicago over it. So I opened up Lateral and started hiring those cops he's firing. And then he sicked OSHA on me. And I was going to get fined $100,000 a day for noncompliance until the Supreme Court struck them down saying OSHA didn't have that authority. So that was fun. Then there was a 2A thing where he wanted me to go take guns off people's doorsteps when I'm like, my gun problems are from Chicago gang members carjacking people, not from citizens where I need to go to their doors. That created Sean Casten and company and all the crazy Democrat state reps and senators trying to call for my removal, that I was such a bad guy. That I think Casten's comment was, if you go to a house filled with Molotov cocktails, you'll go to your citizens' doors and ask them for their guns. And I'm like, there's this document. I don't know that they don't teach cursive anymore in school, but it's called the Constitution. Maybe you should learn cursive and actually read it. I can't do that. I can't prey on my own citizens without probable cause. It's just not how the world works. So then there was a Safety Act, and I told them, we do rehabilitation that would just destroy all of that in our jail system. And the sanctuary state, try to tell them what the repercussions of that was, but doesn't matter when you want congressional seats because, if you don't understand why they're bringing all the immigrants over.
Is that to build a voter base is one of the reasons?
Well, maybe that might ancillary be why, but here's what you got with the sanctuary state. There was no reason to make a sanctuary state. So the Safety Act and sanctuary state, okay, they're both positive. They make nouns into adjectives, right? Safety, sanctuary, safety and sanctuary. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Sanctuary. Who wouldn't want safety and sanctuary? Well, they're both equally horrible and they're advertised and branded by media to be positive, to brainwash people into thinking they're good things. Take the sanctuary state. I've been around a while. I was here before the sanctuary state was brought in by Bruce Rauner and enhanced by J.B. Pritzker. So here's what would happen in the sanctuary state status. I should say without the sanctuary state status. We've never, in the history of Illinois, and I've been on the job for 29 years, I'm a 29-year vet, we've never had anyone in our jail just for immigration status. Never. We've never done that. So what we do is if somebody commits, let's say for easiest example, a battery, somebody batters somebody, me or you would get arrested for that too. So, okay, you commit a battery, you come in, we put you on a thing called APHIS. It's an automated identification fingerprinting system, and it says detainer. So we would just call ICE on the detainer. They would speak to the inmate, the person who came in, who was here illegally, and they would say, what's your deal, this and that, and they would get the skinny on basically why he was here. Then they would get a consulate involved. They would do a quick background check to make sure he didn't come to America running from something in that country that they wanted him for. And then they would review whether or not the new offense that they just committed was worthy of deportation. So, we never were able to deport retail thefters. They would just say, punish them, do your process, and let them go. But if it's a rapist or murderer, or if they're running from something in their country, yes, then they're going to deport them. Then we would call ICE and say, okay, it's confirmed that we have somebody who's committed a crime and they're here illegally. Come pick them up. And it was a prisoner transfer. That's what we do between jails. Why wouldn't we do it with the feds? So now if you shut that avenue down and say you're no longer to do it fairly with the judge, with the consulate, with the inmate, and reviewing their case, basically having a mini trial and a soft handoff with the feds that has no risk in the environment because they're already detained. We're just handing over a prisoner that's unarmed. J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Johnson construed this theory that, hey, stop them from doing that and they'll have to do raids. It'll force ICE to go out to their places of homes, their places of education or schools or jobs. Wherever they are now, you don't have access in the jail. You've got to go into the wild, right? So now there's danger of gunfights. There was a shooting in Chicago just a couple days ago over one of these. That wouldn't have happened if you'd let them deal with them in a correctional facility. So J.B. Pritzker is forcing ICE raids so he could say the evil Donald Trump and the feds and Homan are coming here and I'm protecting you and they'll have to go through me. So here's the real deal with all that. The census after 2022 said we lost over 800,000 people in Illinois. 70% of all of our children that leave the state to go to college never return. We're only getting 30% back. So we're bleeding people. So you know what you need people for? And they're counted in the census. So if you can bring your census numbers up or keep them the same, you keep your congressional seats. So the illegal aliens have two purposes right now. All those kids leaving to go out of state college, our colleges are collapsing. That's why he signed that bill to do the education for the illegal aliens, to help our poorly indoctrinated colleges survive by taxpayer-paid illegal immigrant education. That will save his school system that's collapsing because all the kids are leaving. Then he brings in even more illegal immigrants, so the U.S. Census is doctored up and he can keep his congressional chair. That's what this is all about.
I hate to take sides, because I think both parties have shortcomings, but the Dems, they cheat. they cheat, then they're brilliant at it.
Yep.
And we try to push back with intelligence and logic. And somebody, a wise man once said, you Republicans lose because you don't cheat enough, So, but I didn't.
Well put.
I don't follow politics too much. So thank you for that explanation. It makes sense. So that's one of the reasons. So I'm going to go a little deep on this, and this is world according to me. And I have said this to my sons. I have 3 sons growing up because they would ask about things. My godfather was an affiliate of the mafia. He wasn't in the mafia, but he was a guy that did business with them. He owned a car dealership, and he'd move, hot merchandise through the dealership, and he was well respected. And he taught me about the street. And he said, every dollar that flows is being skimmed somewhere. Okay. So I explained to my sons, like, if there's a bid put out to do road repair on 294, the state will put out an official bid. Okay. And companies are free to come in, paving companies, to submit their bids. But the winning bid always goes to a company that knows how the system works, that whoever the decision makers are who pick the winning bid, a suitcase of money and a lot of gratuity goes back to them on the back end. So for the company to make their profit and then actually have the money to put in the pockets of the politicians and decision makers, they have to pad that bid. So in essence, we, the taxpayer, are paying for necessarily the highest bidder, and this is how the politicians get rich. Am I off base with that kind of synopsis?
Again, I'm going to go back to what I started my career in 6 years as a financial investigator, as a detective sergeant, running all the big financial investigations for a county of almost 1 million people. So what I've noticed is that, I think buddy bids are alive and well, but what they're doing is I've noticed 2 behaviors. I noticed one about a year ago where they awarded a bid, had work started, and then realized, I think it was for a housing center for illegals. And once the work got started, the person who should have legitimately won the bid sued, found out they gave it to the lower bidder or the higher bidder, still had to pay that whole contract off and then bring in the lower bidder to do the work that they had started. They paid twice trying to cheat.
See, and who pays for that? The taxpayer.
The taxpayers. Yeah. So another thing I've noticed too is that there's a fancy way, and this I've learned in many investigations, investigating the billionaires that think they're so smart. So with bidding, you always have to take the lowest bidder, unless you can declare a word, 2 words called sole source. So sole source means that your company has something specific that the other companies doesn't have. So I don't have to listen to a bid. I don't have to care about how much or how little it costs. You have a unique something in that business. So you could conceivably call a company and say, hey, if you can add this to your bid specifications, you'll now be unique, and we can put that on a sole source letter, and it'll force the bid to you. Come on, man. I'm a forensics investigator. That's what I've done my whole career. That's how people scam the systems. They do these fake sole sources. They add something on there that will be so unique to a company because they told them in advance what it was. That company offers that. No other company has it, and they win a bid they shouldn't have.
So I want to stay on this. I know you don't consider yourself a politician, but the fact that you know how money works and you've done all this forensic stuff with following the money, you know how politics works. Plus you're, DuPage County Sherriff. It's like Trump, right? He said it out loud. I know how the system works because I had to operate within the system, right? Right. He's more qualified to be a president, let's say, because he does run business, but he also knows how the politics is intertwined with business, right?
Right.
So,
and you got to figure, with me running an $80 million budget, I have to hold myself to the same standards that I would investigate. No messing with the bids, no sole sourcing unless it's appropriate and real. I mean, I have sole source things too, but it was truly, there's only one company that had that product, and it was something I wanted and needed for safety. That does happen legitimately. That's why they put sole source in. But it's being bastardized and used as a tool for cheating. You only do it when it's appropriate, proper, and real. And that's why I always say, I consider myself an elected official. There are politicians too. There's a big difference. Politicians are here to rule. Elected officials are here to serve. It's a difference between the mindset of what are you coming in this for profit for yourself, for money, for a job, or for someone like me who I worried about my kids' future and can I afford to stay here and how do we sustain what we have in Illinois watching us crash into the sun. I mean, it comes to a point in time where I never really wanted to do this. I feel I'm doing this out of necessity. You know, I've had all these conflicts with JB over the last 7 years, and, you know, every single one of these was preventable, but he just refuses. And a third term of JB Pritzker terrifies me. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to name names because I don't fight with Republicans, but a bunch of people have been jumping in the race. And, you know, me as a sheriff that manages public safety, I don't go view the turf 3 days after the disaster. I'm in the middle of it as it occurs, helping as it occurs. And they need that emergency management in the city. They need to deal with crime. They need to have financial audits. They need to have somebody who's managed a governmental budget, who's had 504 employees, who has had contract negotiations. None of my opponents have that. I mean, for all of them, it's easy to say, what is the sheriff? He's just a police chief. He's just a jailer, you know. No, I run an operation closer to Microsoft, and I try to punctuate with people that, you know, sheriffs are different than police chiefs. Even I have the only jail. I have the only jail in DuPage County, and what we've done with that, and this is another financial point that could be brought through statewide, 80% of the people who come into my jail are on substance. Fentanyl, heroin, alcohol, combination thereof. Half of those, at least half of those people are coming because they're treating themselves for their mental health disorders. While they don't have insurance, you have to understand how the real world works, especially what's going on in the city. You're born, and I'm not making excuses for crime, but some people are born into a vacuum where there's just going to be no other outcome, right? So you're born into somewhere where you have no insurance, no medical, no education, and you all of a sudden realize that this person has, and this is the common stuff that we get in our jail. They were sodomized around six years old, on dope at 10. You've never had a chance when your authority figures are doing that to you. And we get them and they don't know how to read or write. So again, we have all these people come in, they're treating themselves. And what we do is we do full detoxification, medicated assisted treatment, Suboxone, methadone. Then we move you over into one-on-one psychiatric care. I mean, even with good insurance, believe it or not, other than our jail, there's nowhere else you can get one-on-one every day, person-to-person psychiatric service, but you can in the DuPage County Correctional Facility. Then after that, I have 200 counselors, educators, and teachers that teach 80 courses per week. Anger management, criminal thinking. So I'm not going to let some kid out of Purdue write a study on how I'm going to do criminality. We do our own studies. We've interviewed every single inmate that comes into our doors and asks them, what got you here? And that's where we found out about sexual, drugs. And then we backwards engineered what was happening to them into which therapies, counseling, and classes will help the best with those issues. So we have taken what we do as treatment plans and married them like a fingerprint to what ailment, what the person has gone through based on what they interview when they come in. So we do all that. Then we do gang tattoo removal. That has blossomed into human trafficking, branding removal, cut mark removal, injection port removal, bullet hole removal. When they say murder has gone down, murder has gone down only for one reason, and that's medical technology. They can save you after you've been shot 8 times, and Narcan can resurrect you. Shootings have gone up. It's just that they can save you in a medical setting.
That's an interesting twist of data. Right?
Yeah, right. So we take these people, then after all that, we go into vocational work. We have tiling, drywalling, welding, small engine repair. We are a satellite of College of DuPage within my correctional facility. So and get this. This is something I went to a thing about the school being able to be taught in the home, homeschooling. And it was a big event yesterday. And it's really weird. They want to homeschool and the government's trying to stop them from homeschooling. But the government is producing people who can't read or write. In my jail, we have started to have to do GEDs because all of my college level work is got to have a GED first. So I'm getting people who can't read or write. I have to teach them high school equivalency, get their certification there, and then put them through our welding, our small engine repair, our hydroponic, all that kind of stuff. So here was the irony that I learned. So is our education system just seems to fail our children, and so many can't read or write. Somebody made a comment to me just 2 weeks ago at a graduation. We are a satellite of College of DuPage, so we have real college credits, capping on graduations. The only difference that we have between our curriculums, or I should say the success thereof, is that my students average 97%. So I'm cranking out better people for jobs than colleges.
People who started behind the line, right? I mean, they were not even at the starting gate. They were paces back from that, correct?
So yes. So riddle me this. I was looking at a guy who was orating a college speech for small engine repair. I'm looking at it over his shoulder, and he's got a very well written out speech, perfect handwriting. And he's orating it very well, doing a great job with it. Somebody said to me, one of my guys in the deal said, "You do realize 2 years ago, this guy couldn't read or write and didn't have a GED, right?" So I'm like, wait a minute. We got this guy through high school and college, from not able to read or write to orating a very sophisticated speech about small engine repair in 2 years. And you do 9 years in the school system and another 2 to 4 in the college system, and they can't read or write. I'm missing something. If a human being could actually progress in 2 years from illiteracy to college level work in a jail, what's going on in the school systems? Why can't they come to some of these same conclusions? I know we have a different clientele because we have people who've lost before, and it means probably more to them to have a second chance. Our recidivism rates went down from 75 to 15% doing this. Our opioid rates went from 90 to 18%. So when this started, we started this right when I got elected 7 years ago. They all called me Sheriff Hug a Thug. I got made fun of.
I love it.
Rehabilitation. Everyone thought it was, you're a joke. You shouldn't be doing this. They're bad guys. And they're right for 20% of them. 20% of the inmates that I get are rapists and murderers. And it's probably best to keep them separate from society. But 80 people in my correctional facility are good people who made a mistake. And a good portion of those are substance driven. If you get rid of the substance, you get rid of the criminal.
I'm going to ask you another question before I ask you that question. One of my best friends from high school, he just retired from Chicago Public Schools, CPS. He was a principal and an administrator. And, it's a very politicized system, as all big systems are. And we know which side of the political line the CPS is on. And he told me that it got so bad that, if a student was being disruptive, like taking desks and throwing them out the window and stuff like that, that they were not allowed to call the police unless somebody's life was in danger or their physical well-being was in danger. And then I asked him, when do they start teaching sexualized material? He goes, believe it or not, as early as kindergarten. And I go, are you fucking okay with that? He goes, hell no. He goes, what am I going to do? I'm going to speak out with 24 years under my belt and lose my pension, So that's the precursor of the question I'm going to ask you. What is happening in our school system? Why are these people getting through and now they're illiterate? What are we doing wrong?
I think, to me, it's pretty obvious from what I'm seeing in my jail. So when I'm getting so many people that can't read or write, don't have GEDs, don't have high school equivalency, it's obvious that they're cranking out 3 products. One that is just not passing. They're not gaining their education. The second one, they're not gaining their education, but they're still passing them. And then you have your third one where the people, are just very good in education and they survive the system or excel because they're probably have a better foundation at home. Mm-hmm. So when I see the results of what we're doing in our correctional facilities, so let's go back to interviewing all the inmates. The first worst problem, at least that we're reported to in a jail, is sex at too young of an age. That causes suicide, causes rage, anger, criminality, resentment. We have out of those 200 courses that 200 teachers that we have teach those 80 courses per week, 10 of them are all on how to deal with being exploited sexually as a child. That leads into that is the main cause of drug use, because now you're having these weird feelings, you're raging, you've been violated, and maybe I can medicate my way out of this. No difference than Big Pharma doing the grand chemistry experiment when they get you. They're doing the same thing, just with the legal form of opioids. Sex for kids is no good, right?
Is it sexual abuse, or is it sexual abuse and having sex too early?
Having sex too early is going to be probably the huge one. There's huge violations. But now what I would consider sexual abuse is making a child question their gender. That is going to mentally give you bifurcation, conflict, contradiction. But I'm a boy. No, you could be a girl too. But what's the difference? Oh, you can identify. Well, when did we stop teaching biology? It should be reading, writing, arithmetic, biology, scientific standards. Isn't that what we're supposed to deal on instead of idolization? Because I'll tell you, I truly believe that poor, great man Charlie Kirk was killed over indoctrination in the college chamber. I mean, this guy based everything on transgender, looked like he set him up completely for that warped belief that Charlie Kirk had a difference of opinion with him, so must be killed. Must be killed. That's what's being put in our youth heads in school. And that's terrifying me. How many more, and I'm not going to name this guy because he's a scumbag. I don't name scumbags. We never name school shooters. We never name mass shooters. We never name murders in the past. Now the media almost glorifies the pictures of this kid, putting him in. Nah, you know what? Take your worst picture of him, put that on display. I'm sick of seeing the nice prom picture of these people. It's disgusting. I believe that these people are being generated in an indoctrination chamber. And the poor homeschoolers who just don't want to be through that. No, now we're gonna mental health test them. We're gonna do all this other stuff. We're gonna be more. The more it seems like the parents want their children to be theirs, the more the government wants to step in. You know what? We're all children of God, and you know what? Our children are our parent, and our parents. That's who controls our children, not the state. It's just they're getting in the way of God, and they're getting in the way of family. And I'll tell you what, you want to know why we're weak in Illinois? We've lost the two biggest things that keep a society stable and productive. That's the nuclear family. I mean, we do prenups. We're planning for divorce while we're getting married and scrubbing God out of everything. Mm-hmm. Those two things weaken a society, and that's what they've done to weaken all of us. And transgender, think about it. What kind of family do you have in that realm? It's not traditional, right? It breaks up. It's a mechanism to break up the traditional family. But it's also creating a very resentment-based culture. And that's what these people are. Because once you confuse them on their sexual orientation and you tell them they should be something that they're not, you create mental health issues. It's just that simple. I wish it wasn't true, but we see it every day in our correctional facility.
I think a parallel with this, and when you said if Kamala won again, I was making videos and podcasting during that era, and I was getting concerned that my stuff was getting banned and deleted, and I'm not, I don't have hundreds of thousands of followers yet. And I did a podcast on, I called it the transdemic. Is there a transdemic? And it was just me talking. And my whole point was that it wasn't even about we shouldn't teach it in school or whatever, because I hadn't gone that deep in it. It was we shouldn't be putting children through gender affirming care, which you talked about the nouns and how they put nice words together. Our brains aren't fully developed yet. We should wait until at least 18 years old before there's any kind of plan enacted, because we're not developed yet, right? So that's really bothersome to me, and it is because of indoctrination. If you actually plot the graph of when did they start teaching gender in school and the percentage of people that identified as a different gender, it runs, they overlap. It's just like, I'm going to get controversial here, but the onset and increase of childhood vaccines after 1986, during the Reagan administration, they passed a protection act for all vaccine manufacturers that they could no longer be sued for liability for injury or death from a vaccine. Well, we went from 7 childhood vaccines to like 77. So each increased vaccine, that added to the CDC list of childhood vaccines also increased not only autism, but everything. Everything's gone up. Food allergies, you name it. And the studies are coming out now. I don't know what's going to happen, but and this is the way you take down a country, like you said. It's happening in the state and nationwide. Removal of God and removal of the nuclear family. I mean, that's where we're at across the board.
With these two things you're talking about, it brings a couple things to my mind. First, it's not that the gender issues are tolerated; it's that they're taught. They're introducing subjects they would have never had exposure to in a school system. So what right does a teacher have to take a strand of sexual knowledge to my kid in school who would have never experienced that knowledge, that touch of sexuality, but it's happening in a school system? 8 years ago, you'd have gone to jail for that. That just drives me absolutely crazy. And here's the thing that when you look at this whole thing about him now doing the after budget award of mental health screening mandatory for all kids, that's to get you to a diagnosis. Now you have an attached stigma for your diagnosis. And these people, they're screening centers. I've learned in my environment that if you don't know the difference, there's a big difference between mental health issues and trauma-related issues. They're treated differently. They have no idea what even the difference is of that. So what's their solution going to be when they don't know how to treat? Big pharma, drugs. Okay, they've got this diagnosis, give them this dope. They've got this diagnosis, give them this dope. And I'm calling it dope because just because it's pills coming on a prescription from some knucklehead doctor doesn't mean it's right.
100% agree. And we have the most medicated country of all the modern nations in the world. We have the most unhealthy population of any modern nation,
including our governor.
Yeah. Well, what does that say?
Look, he's the example for health. This is the guy who was telling me how to manage health during COVID.
Amazing. Well, I mean, you're touching on some really good stuff. And I want to go back to your son saying, I'm not leaving, because you were thinking about Alabama. Well, during the middle of the last administration, I was in full, we got to get out of here. We're going to go Kentucky, Tennessee, wherever. Everybody's got their own place. I would even do Florida because Florida is what it is. And then I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm making my stand here. I'm not going anywhere because if we leave, then
they win.
They win. Exactly right. So, I have interesting things done to this house to protect this house, which I won't share but we're going to make our stand here. Yeah.
I'm of the same agreement. That's the conclusion that I came to too, is why should I have to run away? Why should I was born in Berwyn, and I grew up shortly in Downers Grove, but spent most of my life in Bolingbrook, but then spent most of my life in Downers Grove. Now I live in Woodridge. So I've been in this area and in this state my whole life. And it's a shame that I feel like I should have to leave to avoid everything that's coming. But, I think one of the things that bother me the most, and going back to everything that we can do in the jail, is the Safety Act. Really, we're the national leaders. All that stuff that I talked about, we're the national leaders in rehabilitation. We teach at the National Sheriff's Association.
When you say we, you mean in DuPage County?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Myself and my partner, Mike Berry, who runs Just of DuPage, he and I teach a class on how to do this. We have taught Kane County how to implement a lot of what we do. They're the only other county around here that is starting to do what we're doing. Illinois Department of Corrections has done tours recently, and now they're going to start absorbing some of this. And, we realize that, here's a number for you too. it is so expensive to warehouse human beings. For every dollar we put in rehabilitation, we're saving 19 in housing and incarceration. So I would say DuPage County alone probably saves about $10 million a year in incarceration fees by doing rehabilitation. If we were able to do this and project this out throughout 102 counties, we could reform our entire criminal justice system, save hundreds of millions of dollars while converting our criminal population into our vocational workers. And instead of a walking crime wave, you have taxpayer citizens. But as good as we are at this, the Safety Act took about half of it away from us.
Well, tell me about the Safety Act.
So the Safety Act, they say that you have to be considered a threat to society or a threat to a specifically named person to be incarcerated now. So take a fentanyl dealer. I got busted with a brick of fentanyl. They'll let them go on the next day. So if they let a fentanyl dealer go at bond court, that means that they didn't believe a brick of fentanyl constituted as a threat to society. So when they go out tomorrow and OD more kids, that's not a threat to society. That's the world we're living in right now. So the Safety Act hurt my ability to take, like, say a burglar comes in. We let those go now. They're almost always substance driven. We can't hold them in our jail. But we used to call a burglar low-hanging fruit. We could take someone like that who's substance-driven, detox, and put them through our programs, and in 8 months, they'll be out and they'll be a vocational worker, never return to jail again, hence my recidivism rates that go from 75 to 15%. And now, remember, 80% come in on substance. Now, that substance-driven burglar, we let them out while they're detoxing. It's also called jonesing or tweaking. And we let them out while they're doing that, and all they can think about is getting more dope and more bad decisions, then more arrests. By the time they actually see a judge, they've got 4 on them and they're going to go to IDOC for 20 years. So the Safety Act promulgates long-term incarceration, as well as when you mix it with the sanctuary state. So when I ask you where you live and you say a tent, where do I send my court notice to for the crime you committed? You should see how full we are in my jail for failure to appear warrants.
Wow.
Again, it promulgates mass incarceration. The Safety Act did not work in any way. Safety and sanctuary. Safety and sanctuary. Cute little words that have the opposite effect of what the media is built. They're media brands. The Safety Act and the Sanctuary State are media brands.
Well, I love the whole back end thing that you're doing to rehabilitate these people. You're giving them a chance. And it is empathetic. You know, we overuse empathy these days. Mm-hmm. It is empathetic to look at the root cause of why are these guys like they are. That was brilliant to me to compile and find out where does
causation.
This all start.
Yeah, right.
So,
and it's so similar. So many say this, and it's always sex and drugs. Sexualization of kids and drug use from kids are the two ways to kill our own future.
Yeah, I'll give you a little frank worldview. I'm an optimist, and I come from what I call a warrior culture. I came from Depression era people. We don't give up, and we take care of business. And I don't lose sleep over anything anymore because all we can do is the best we can do. Right. Okay. But I'm so cynical about where we are in the world, especially after the Charlie Kirk thing, when I saw the wickedness of people coming out and celebrating.
Sick.
I think as a country, we're too far gone to ever come back together. However, I do have faith in ground level, which is what we're talking about. You're not running for president or prime minister, you're running for governor, that we actually can make a difference in our towns, our counties, and in our state. That's where the healing can start and bringing the people together. But, from the top down, I think we're too far gone.
Yeah, let's focus for just a second on what we're going to be doing after this. We're going to be going to Matt's Barbecue in Lamont. Now, the reason I want to pitch this is because they're just very decent people, and they want to do a vigil for a horrible atrocity that happened to Charlie Kirk. That's all they did, vigil. People are trying to boycott them. What? Are you kidding me? I'm going there to buy a whole bunch of stuff today, and I'm now going to be one of their frequent flyers for the here on after just because they're being attacked. We have, like you said, what are we going to do about it? We have to start standing up We have to start, when they say boycott, we say everyone patronize. And we have to support the people that are doing the right thing. I'm so sick of people doing the right thing are afraid to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we are at a societal degradation right now where men are being demasculinized.
Amen.
And I think that's to make them more malleable to the party leanings and do what we tell you to. But it's scary to see how much has changed in a short time. 8 years ago, if you tried to talk to a 12-year-old girl about sex, you'd be in my jail. Now it's college curriculum. I was told that Gender Queer, a book about, I'm just using the word, if it's okay for school, strap-ons and stuff like that, discussed in a book for children, that was considered not a book, but a memoir legally. So they could get out of prosecution for soliciting sex to children. And if we're going to allow stuff like that, you may as well just give it up all right now. You're going to burn. It's going to be Sodom and Gomorrah. You can only go so far with this. And I'm going to go back to it. This is not what God would approve of. And I make my decisions. And I have no fear of saying this in any public forum. I make my decisions every day by thinking, what would God want me to do? Mm-hmm. And by using that set of philosophies, morals, every decision I've made in my life based on would God approve of what I'm doing. If I believe in my mind truly that he would say, yes, I approve. It's been good decisions. It's been great moral turpitude, moral guidance. More people should ask, would God approve of what you're doing?
And they have demonized us and made us uncomfortable to talk about God and Jesus, right?
Not there anymore. Yep.
It's on a
Too much.
Complete awakening what's happening with Christianity, if you will. The fight is here, and we're in it. I read some statistic today about Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it was 1-point-something million followers, has now just jacked up to 10 million. The reckoning is coming, and the pushback against the darkness is coming.
It's just so sad that such a good man had to be martyred to do it. I didn't know him personally, but as it turns out, I knew a whole lot of people who knew him very well because he started just up the road from here in Lamont. And I have a lot of friends that were basically non-functional for a couple of days, just weeping. And the reason they were so sad was because of what a good man he was, however you want to put it. But you had a guy who simply wanted to open up dialogue. He didn't want to, he was not a jerk to anybody. I've watched, so this is why it bothered me so much. Couple of reasons is I've watched a good majority of his YouTubes. I always loved the way he reasoned. He could get people to agree with him that normally wouldn't agree with him. But, I got an X video sent to me, and I didn't know what it was. I couldn't open it on my phone because I don't have X on my phone, but my wife does. So I sent her a video and said, can you open this for me? Not 2 minutes, she's down bawling.
Or what was it, the video?
Yeah, it was the video. And I'm like, she's like, why in God's name would you send this to me? I'm like, what is it? I just got sent, I couldn't open it. And then I played it, and it looped, so I watched it 4 or 5 times before I could unglue from it because it was like I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
I thought it was AI. When I first saw it, I couldn't believe it.
I knew it wasn't. And it did have some level of trauma on me even for a couple of days. I mean, the fact that some evil bastard could even conceive of doing that and thinking he's right, and then etching horrible, horrible things on the rounds, justifying and like making almost fun of the whole circumstance. This person's evil. I just hope that the death penalty applies and this person is executed, because that's the only solution for someone like him.
I talked to you about the death of my wife, and I've learned that if you live your life right upon your death, it's the completion of your legacy, because you bring people closer together. They carry your spirit forward, and look what is happening to Charlie. He's stronger now than in death than he was. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll dedicate this episode to him. I did watch that video at least 100 times because it's gruesome, but I tell myself I must never look away. Yeah. I'm never going to look away. Let's shift gears here. I know you got to leave pretty soon. Tell me about Dr. Robert Renteria.
So Dr. Robert, has always been a positive figure in my life. So I met him. I distributed his books from the barrio to the boardroom in my correctional facility, and it was a big hit with our inmates. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just read the first 3 pages so I can at least tell him that I know kind of what his book is about. And I started reading it, and I actually read the whole damn thing in like a 2-day period of time. I like the book so much. The book centers not only about getting out of gang life, taking control of your own future, but the way I interpreted from the barrio to the boardroom was that it was a book about never giving up, trying harder than the guy next to you. If they don't come in on weekends, you come in on weekends. If they come in at 8, you come in at 6. Basically, it was the way I lived my whole life. And when I read it, I just felt so akin to the messaging in that book that I was like, wow, this guy is a version of my philosophy of what I believe in. And I didn't want a politician. You know, you look at the politicians that are jumping in our race right now. I mean, it's all uber political right now. And that's not us. I didn't want somebody from that cloth. Neither did society. One of the big questions I get everywhere I go are you affiliated with the party? Are you, and we're not. We just are doing what we want to do for the right reason. And when I asked Robert to be my lieutenant governor, at first he hesitated. He's like, I don't know if, and I'm like, you don't have, I think even he realized that he's been a big shot in the Republican Party because he's been, I hate to say it like this, the token Hispanic person. This is the problem with the party, with the Republican Party, is they look at minorities as, I'm just going to say it, as like almost like dancing monkeys, right? Come over here and tell everybody how great we are. And they need to hear it from a minority, and they don't give them any position of power. One thing I learned from my dad in Oak Park had 2 big successes in his career. The one was he invented one of the first field training programs. And the second was that he created the first real diversity program that didn't just get you in the door, but taught you how to compete for promotions and the big spots too. Diversity is great if some of your rank and file have color, but none of your administration does. Even like, I'll be honest with you, and it has nothing to do with color whatsoever. It's doing the right thing, not the wrong thing. The guy that I'm backing to replace me as sheriff is Eddie Moore. He will be the first black sheriff in DuPage County, and it has nothing to do with his skin color. He's the only person who can do the job that I've done, that I've worked with for 20 years, that I trust, that has been in the trenches with me, has been my sergeant when I was lieutenant. He's been my undersheriff for 7 years. And you know what? Race means absolutely nothing to me other than what can you do? What is your skill set? And that's where the Republican Party doesn't look at that. They look at minorities a lot of times as, how can you make me look good? But we're not going to ever give you the big button. It's always going to be some white people. I'd say it like that. But it's like we open the door for minorities to come in, but we don't invite them in for dinner, right? We don't give them opportunities at the actual big spots. Well, I look at it different. I think Robert Renteria is perfect for lieutenant governor and having a big spot. He's been, I don't want to use the word used, but utilized by a lot of Republican groups to do speeches. And even my own township of Downers Grove hired him once, I think about 1.5 years ago, to come in and do speeches. But, hiring somebody to come in and do a speech and supporting them during a run for an elected position is much different.
Right. And I love that. And I've had many conversations with him about that very thing, people calling upon him and, just using him as a prop almost.
Right.
So
it's horrible.
Yeah, I love it. When I saw you and him together, I was like, yeah, that's phenomenal. He's been on our podcast before. Not to switch gears real quick, but you've mentioned your dad a couple times, and I'm a big proponent of our veterans and our law enforcement. I gave you a copy of my book at your fundraiser, Chapter 9 is about freedom and veterans. So whenever I see a veteran on the street, I give him a copy of the book, and there's a note inside that says, thank you for serving our country. You represent the best of us. So, well, with police officers, I don't have anything per se in the book about police officers, which in retrospect, I wish I put in there. But police officers, and I've had a few career lawmen on this show, people don't understand that you see the worst of humanity every day of your life. And if you have a long career, you see things that are traumatic. You carry terrible flipping storms in your head that nobody even understands. And then you have all this crazy BS about defund the police and all this anti-police sentiment. So when that was started happening, I would just approach police officers, carefully, because I don't want to, make them think, and I would just shake their hand and I go, guys, thank you for serving our community and protecting us. And I said, you guys have a shit job these days. And that's exactly how I phrased it. And I tell them, I want you to know that I'm a conceal and carry. And if I ever saw an officer in distress, I'm fighting side by side with you at the risk of my own life. And it means a lot to them. I just wanted to touch on with your father being a career lawman. Do you think he has or had some dark storms that he carried with him?
Yeah, I think we all do. And, my dad was very good at being a guider, to guide me in the right places. I think, you get the benefit sometimes of somebody who has learned from their mistakes. So they teach you before you make the same mistakes. Even like the whole jail, why I do everything, why I pour in so much into treatment, into detoxification, into counseling, into job training. My dad told me when I was running for sheriff, he goes, just remember, Jim, you get in there, those people are your ward. I'm like, what do you mean ward? He goes, well, and my dad was instrumental in helping my son with autism become the man he is. My dad every day was there for him, every day helping him, every day. And he said, the ward means by legal definition, they're the same as your son, Colin. They're the same as your son, Connor, that you're now responsible for their medical, their dental, their treatment, their well-being, everything that your son. So you need to look at what type of institution, God forbid, if your sons ever got arrested, would you want them in? Because it's all the same. If they're your ward and the inmates are your ward, you now have to have the treatment that should be the same. You're now responsible for 600 lives every day that are in there. And I took that very seriously. And then I said, okay, let's play this out. If they're my ward, they're my kids, I got to worry about their nutrition, their health, their mental health, what they've been through, how they're going to get treated, what they're going to eat. We just opened up a barber shop as another training course, just to add in the ease of haircuts. And those words from my dad ring true to me, now doing what I'm doing, that I have to make an institution that I would feel that my own family would be safe in if, God forbid, they did something to get incarcerated. And mind you, people should think about that. Lots of people have been incarcerated. There's 4 million citizens in Illinois that are considered previously incarcerated.
Wow.
That many people get arrested. You don't hear about it. People don't know what goes on in a lot of living rooms, but there's more people get arrested, and it's through every scope of life that you can imagine.
Your dad sounds like a great guy, great man.
Great man. I get nothing but people still, as recently as a week ago, said, I knew your dad. He was a great man. He invented a field training program and one of the first diversity programs that ever was created in Oak Park. He was in a very diversity-related area and just aced it with Oak Park. He really did. And he convinced the sculptor to become a cop. I don't know how he did that.
All right. So I talked with you on the phone, and you told me, you were into art and sculpting and, growing up predominantly in Oak Park, which is a very, left liberal suburb that I can tell. And I'm like, how did you not turn out to be, more left than right? And what did you tell me?
For me, I had 2 big influences that really pushed me in the direction. I was a tie-dye wearing and selling college student. Yeah, a sculptor, photographer, literature. It was during the Bill Clinton era. It was when I was down in Lincoln College. And you know what? And I just got to say that, I got to throw this in there. Lincoln College, I did my 2-year degree in Lincoln, Illinois. They just got a $500,000 check from J.B. Pritzker to help that college through an NGO, non-governmental organization. They've been closed since 2022. Just a little coincidence there. But anyway, I would watch Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh, if I had to credit one person for making me a conservative, it was Rush Limbaugh. So I watched his show, and he did a thing to me that was very unique at the time when I was a liberal, and I would believe what I was told. But he was great with these video clips. He would say, pull up, 21A, pull up 31B. And all of a sudden I'd have 2 clips of Bill Clinton, one saying one thing, one saying the exact opposite. So I could actually watch him contradict himself on one screen. And I'm like, we're being duped. We're hearing so he's breaking his message apart for depending on who he's talking to. And when I realized that I was being lied to, because that's the one thing, shame on me for the first time, or shame on you for the first time, shame on me for the second. I mean, once you realize you're being lied to, it changes your look at things. And, since then I watched Rush Limbaugh until, even when he went deaf and still did the radio show and all that kind of stuff. It was that one man, his one show that had such a strain of reality within it, where you could actually show me proof as a college student who needed proof, needed to be told and convinced. And I'm like, that's 2 videos, the dude saying the opposite stuff of what he was saying. So I can't believe him now. Now I can't believe him. And then I started, okay, what else do you have? And boy, did he have a lot more over the years. And, it was a combination between my dad and Rush Limbaugh's show that turned me from a pretty big liberal to a conservative.
It's interesting. And I know you got to get going pretty soon. So I want to just cap it off with what are your thoughts on the majority of our media?
Well, I think that's the majority of our problem. I think there should be legislation created to hold media accountable, hold them accountable for riots that are incited because of disinformation. I think if they can be proven wrong, their liability lawsuits should be expanded. You know what? How about this? How about contingency-based lawsuits for the media? We have them for all our Illinois businesses, right?
What is a contingency-based lawsuit?
It's where you just have a group of lawyers that you can call up and sue a business and not put a penny up. So if you lose nothing. If you win, then you get millions out of the business. So you have no risk lawsuits. They're contingency-based law. That's what's driving all the businesses. You take the workers' comp rates being 3 times higher than any collar state in contingency-based lawsuit where, just through, regulations and insurance, for a medium-sized to large business, you're probably looking at over $1.5 million just in that. And then you're going to have $6,000 in your bank every month to chase off these lawyers that are contingency-based lawyers that have no skin in the game. Nobody needs any money. There's no legislation built into where the loser pays for the other person's attorney, which would sour the milk on that really fast.
Is this why we have all these personal injury signs all over Illinois?
They're contingency-based. So you ain't got to put no money on them. You can just sue somebody for the fun of it. And all these ambulance chasers are more than welcome because if they win half of them, they make money. So if I own a business, my workers who can pitch a finger will get 3 times much on workers' comp. And if you don't like the taste of my burger, you can sue me on contingency and I got to defend that too. And if it's frivolous, I still got to pay to defend it. You don't.
Wow.
I mean, that is what's driving business out of Illinois. You do stuff like that. Why wouldn't you go to a state that doesn't?
And then back to the media thing. It's fascinating to me how you saw the truth, right? Because you saw side by side on Rush Limbaugh or heard. You can do that with people now, and they refuse to accept it as truth, even though they're seeing it right before their eyes. And the one example I like to use, which fascinates me, is with COVID. At the beginning, take one shot and you're good. It's a vaccine. You're protected. And even Rachel Maddow, you won't get it. It's one shot. Da-da-da. And then a few months later, you may need another shot. You already forgot.
And then the line of boosters.
Yeah. You already forgot what they told you the first time. You're one and done. This is mind capture that is propagated by the media, in my opinion. So that's why I think we're in bad shape as a nation, too. So if there are measures taken to clean that up, that would be pretty cool.
We cannot let the government step between us and our doctors. That was the philosophy that I held with JB through the entire mask, restaurant, vaccination, mandatory list, all those attacks that I dealt with. It's because I wouldn't become your doctor. You know, if you're going to wear a mask, if you're going to be on a vaccination list, if you're going to, you know, attend a restaurant because of health issues or not to attend because of health issues, that's between a conversation between you and your doctor. You know, how would I feel saying to do or not do something? I'm going to make you get a shot as your employer. And then you have an allergic reaction and you die. I'm expected to deal with that and have that on my, again, I believe in God. I can't have that on my conscience. That'll destroy me. Why would you try to put me in a position to control somebody's medical? And I'm not a physician.
I agree with that. All right, my friend. Well, I'm going to tell you, you have my full backing and whatever I can do to help you. We got to fight and stand our ground here. Right. And then, you know, maybe we can grow it from there.
The bottom line is we have to remember that we are a nation of values and we're a nation of laws. You know, I say it comically, but I really do mean it. I am going to make crime illegal again.
I love it.
And I am going to make Illinois safe again. What we need now is not somebody who's going to come 3 days after the tornado to say, boy, it just looks like something horrible happened. We need leaders that are going to be on scene. We need to embrace our federal government. We need to stop violating federal law. We need to start looking at our budget and who we're hiring, job task analysis, budget reviews, contract reviews. Like we were talking about low bids, make sure those are all the sole sources are on target where they should be. We need to look at the budget from not how can we tweak a few things to make it better, but how can we rip it to pieces, look at what's being done wrong with it, kill all the fat and the waste, and then use that money to recover our tax base.
And then there's a degree of street guy in me that says when you're elected, you also have to watch your back because you're going to be stepping on a lot of toes of this ancient kind of corrupt machine, right?
And I'm not afraid to say they should realize too that when we retire, if you're fully certified, which I am, I'll be a cop for 2 more years as governor, and they're all going to jail.
Nice. That is a perfect finish, my friend. Well, thank you, Mr. Jim Mendrick, for being here. Jim Mendrick running for governor of Illinois. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you,
Thank
sir.
you so much for having me on today. Thank you.
Thank you. And remember, everybody, there's a warrior inside us all. We'll see you at our next podcast.